We are Joycore Studio.
I'm Erica.
I'm Asha.
And I'm Josie.
And together we've been working alongside entrepreneurs from both business and NGO spaces, grassroots community members, and industry thought leaders to facilitate and empower communities to design solutions to the complex, wicked problems they face.
This podcast grew out of a desire to explore the role and effectiveness of design thinking and systems practice within those wicked problems. Over the last 3 years, a central theme of our work in one such wicked problem has been about understanding and exploring the challenge of reintegration for survivors of human trafficking and bonded labor. And this is what we'll be exploring in these episodes. Each episode in the series starts out with a conversation with our guests, and then Josie, Asha, and I spend a couple of minutes discussing what we've learned and how that applies or could apply to our work and broaden our thinking.
Kristen is an economist by training. She has a PhD from Princeton University and has taught microeconomics and strategy for a decade at Columbia University. She continues to work as an expert witness, mostly on issues related to the financial services industry. She is a student by habit and is currently pursuing a second doctorate in global leadership, researching the practical theology of generosity in America. She and her husband invest their retirement in nonprofits that are pursuing the redemptive future, which is how she came to be involved with international development projects and Joycore as an investor and as a highly involved board member. Hannah is the founder of Himalayan Entrepreneur Resources, an NGO started in 2020 that strives to restore broken communities to wholeness by empowering women in all stages of life through truth, education, and opportunity. Hannah is both from and a strong advocate for the Badi community, a lower caste Dalit community. Badi means Vadya Vadak, maker of instruments, but the culture is currently in decline, with women and children disappearing into brothels, trafficked across the border into India, many of whom will never return, and men going there for work, often forced into back-breaking work, often scammed out of their wages and paid in food rations. Her work in the field of human rights and social justice has largely been towards the empowerment of her community. Apart from Kristen being the Joycore board chair, she's also been a great advocate of Studio and has a heart for the anti-human trafficking space. Hannah has been involved with the Joycore entrepreneurship program, and we've gotten to visit her in Nepal while working on a project together. Why we felt this was an important topic. When thinking about who would be best to frame this series on challenges of reintegration, we thought Kristen and Hannah brought a lot of knowledge and personal experience to the conversation and therefore would be good people to set context to this topic. Due to the length of the conversation, we have split this into two parts. The first part is around identity and the second goes into a bit about community transformation. Let's jump right into the episode. Thank you, Kristen and Hannah, for saying yes to do this with us. It's such a joy and honor to have both of you here. So just as a warm-up question, something we've been asking all our guests so far has been, in the studio, when we are designing workshops and solutions, we always think of people as heart, soul, mind, strength. And consider that what we are doing, what we are designing will impact them in all those areas. And so when we talk about heart, we basically are talking about feelings, emotions, the soul, beliefs, values, intellect for the mind, and strength is physical body. So I think the first question we have for you is, how do you bring your whole self, that is the heart, soul, mind, strength, to your work? Both of you can answer, and Kristen, if you can start, it would be great, and then we can do Hannah. Yeah.
That's a great question. I think that as a person, my instinct is to come first with my heart and my mind. And I've had to learn over time to bring the soul and the body to the work. And I guess as a 20-something-year-old, the soul piece came in for me when I realized that working in my own strength wasn't necessarily working. So I was able to accomplish some things just from what I knew, from my head knowledge, from my heart knowledge, but I really was not able to do all the things I wanted to do without access to a kind of deeper intuition. And I think that's where the soul piece came in. But I would say my body got left behind until I was probably in my 40s. Like I treated myself like I was a machine. And so I just needed to keep the body running, and the body served all the other parts, but it wasn't really present to the work until I hit about 40 and realized that wasn't working either. And it wasn't really kind to myself. So I spent a lot of time thinking about being kind to other people, but I was not being kind towards myself. So the way it's come in for me is to develop a compassion for myself and to bring a pattern of rest to my work.
Hmm. Yeah, that's so true. I feel like for many of us, body and the heart are things we kind of ignore because everything else just takes precedence, especially when it comes to work, because you put mind first. But yeah, Hannah, how about you?
So, I mean, I have a different story when it comes to, all about these things. Because, well, growing up, that I never find out that we also like have a soul and mind and heart, like it was mild, very basic things that we always learn about, like, oh, it's a whole body, right? So it was very tough for us to, that separate that we have a soul also that we need to care, and we have a heart that it's heard, we have a mind that we have to think about. I never learned that before. So while growing up, that I grew up in the environment where that lots of that the people they always talk about, after I got like rescued, I would say, that I grew up around the people that who always talk about, that soul, and that there is a like three things. Always they always talk about soul, heart, and mind. So but even though it was very tough for me to figure it out, that how uh like three things put in a one, that one box and work together, because for me was it was a very tough uh, to recognize, that the feelings. But still I'm struggling to recognize my feelings, where it's come from, like it's my heart, or it's from mind, or it's from soul. So I always struggle with it. And but when nowadays slowly I started learning about, because I work very hard to come here, like whatever I am today, I have put so much effort, so much sacrifice, and lots of things, like it's I can't even like explain how hard it was. And still I'm struggling with it, right? But at the same time I'm grateful that finally now in my like right now I think I'm in the right age to understand that I need to, that figure it out, that that my soul, my heart, and my mind, there is a like three different things, and I have to take care of all of them while I'm working. So I'm trying to be a, like, I was a very kind person, I would say, while growing up, because when there was only one thing that I learned, to be a kind.
Mm.
And then I find out I was super kind, like there was no boundaries.
Mm.
That the people they taught me like to be a kind, but they don't taught me like how much I need to be kind. So I struggle with it, but now I'm learning, and I'm taking care of my soul, and still my mind and my heart, because this like I think it's a more important things that is exist in our body. So, and I put the three things in my work nowadays. So but before I was like just focusing on only one thing. It was my heart, it was just working. And then I never use my mind, I never use, that I have to think through, and soul, about about the soul. But now soul care is more important than anything. I put it in a first priority now, because when your soul is in the right place, when your soul is healed, and then you can work, like in a good, with a good mindset. So yeah, these are the things.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Hannah. Because even as you were talking, I think what I was thinking is you brought in the cultural aspect so well, especially in cultures where we're not, I mean, we're not taught to express it out loud. So sometimes
Yeah.
I completely get that bit of not being able to differentiate what is it that you're feeling at the moment. Yeah, thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Hannah, for sharing. I have a question. And both of you can feel free to share to whatever extent you guys want to share. Yeah. But over the last 3 years at Studio, we've been working on projects trying to tackle the challenge of reintegration for survivors of human trafficking and bonded labor. And through some of this research, we've come across many organizations and nonprofits and NGOs working in this area, in the area specifically of rescue and rehabilitation. But when it comes to this piece of reintegration and supporting survivors to transition into building stable livelihoods or just stability for themselves, most people and most organizations that we've spoken to have expressed the difficulties that successful community reintegration poses, right? And so, would you both be able to share a story of a successful experience, if you've come across one, of reintegration that you've seen or heard through your work?
I would let Hannah go first.
Oh, okay. I mean, doing rescue mission is sometime it can be like tough for sure. That it's a very big challenge and it's a rescue at the same time, and you have to put yourself in at the place where that you don't know, like what's gonna happen in the next minute. But at the same time, it's a not harder, like it's not that much harder than like that. So like working on like that in the area where that you just that make a plan, you raise the fund, and then after that like you do rescue mission. So when you bring the girls, like, and then you focus on her like mental the health, and then counseling and other career counseling things, maybe provide education or provide other that opportunities, like let's say vocational trainings and all kind of things. And those are the like also the very tough things, but it doesn't that give you so much work and so much effort to that that when the girls are ready to do something. So when the girls have a mindset of doing something, when they are ready to do and when they are ready to fight, and then challenges start from there. Because what happens is, like when we go to the brothel and when we rescue them, and when they are living in the hostel or maybe like in a safe place, there's only one thing involved. It's organization, right? Their life schedule will be like connected with the organization that whoever like helping. But when it comes to like them to going back or like that living like going outside of that comfort zone, and then that and then start fighting and then leaving the for their own that with their own dreams and start doing something. And what happens is there's so many things comes across, like society, and then all the fear, anxiety, questionable people, like, and the government, and everything just comes across. So what happens is that now they have to tackle with it, and then that's become like huge challenge for the most of the girls when it comes to like doing something by their own. Like I'll give you an example of the successful story that the girls are starting, like that their cafe, right? Karnali Cafe. It has been just, I think it's almost like 2 3 months. So that they are doing great, like they are doing great. I mean, their food price is good, like everything, they're very comfortable. But reaching in that place was the one of the toughest things that they have been like suffer in life, So that we are grateful for the venture supporting our girls to go to the one of the that most expensive one of the like great that coffee school in our nation. It's called Himalayan Java, right? So our girls, they went there and they learned and they had a skill that, and they are good at like that representing themselves and talking and the serving and making good coffee. So they learn everything, but when it comes to hiring them, there is a like so when they go to the school and they pay money, the venture paid money, there was like no questions was asked about like caste or like, I mean, nothing, right? But like when they finished and like when it comes to hiring them, there was a question was raised, like, okay, so okay, you're gonna have a name tag here, because all the employee in our coffee shop, like that in our restaurant, that you're gonna have to have a like one name tag, like because the people gonna like the customer will ask your name. So what like if they saw about like that they saw that your body, that then I think we're gonna have a problem. So what they don't buy a food? What if they don't, that receive like you the food that you serve, and we're gonna have a problem. So, and then that the mentally trauma that they suffer, and that gives them like very low the self-esteem, that that thinking about, okay, I want to start something. So that makes them feel very low, and then in the community they that makes them feel like, okay, I think I don't exist, or I'm not capable to that have a even like small job like that. They paid like only 10,000 rupees, but our girls have, they had a courage, and they they just they collect money, and they started this a small cafe, and now they are doing, I'll give you one example. Last time there like next to the cafe there was one guy. He was like literally against of that coffee shop, like he was against of the that the girls were starting cafe there, because he knows all our story. He knows like where our girls come from, because he's a neighbors, right? He's our girls grew up in front of that guy. So last time that guy come, he just asked, he just wanted to like, he was asking like tricky questions, and like where you come from, like what's your caste and all kind of things. And then I was sitting in the corner, but I let girls to handle that guy. So that guy come and he said, um where you come from? And then that one of our that a sister, and she said, and oh, Kiran, and she said, she come and she said like, oh, I'm come from Surkhet, West Nepal. And he said, oh, that's nice, and I think you are from Lighthouse, right? And then our girl said like, yeah, we grew up there, but now we live in that in our home Nepal, so. And then he said like, what's your last name? And then he said, and then I was very surprised to hear that she said, sir, we'll tell you our last name later. First, we would love you to taste our food.
Oh,
And then that guy was Puz. And then she said, like, we would love you to try our food, because you are our neighbors. You are like our parents. You are coming here. And then the people, they come from very far away, and you are just, staying here, and you have seen us growing up here. And then we would love you to try the coffee that we make, and the food that we're gonna cook for you. And the guy has no word to say. And then he was quiet, and he said, like, okay, so I will try the coffee first. So they make coffee, they give, and then he drank coffee. He said, I go to Himalayan Java, I go to different coffee shop, but I never try like, this kind of coffee before. And this guy is from high caste, and he will not even try, anything. But our girls, the way they represent themselves in front of him, and then they give a coffee and he drink. And they make a paratha, the aloo paratha. They serve him, and he ate. And now he become our regular customer.
oh,
He don't ask the questions, like he don't ask like, what's your last name? Because now he knows our girls are Badi girls.
mhm.
And then this is the successful story, that our girls' story is not only impacting, that for the young girls, but they're impacting in the community. They're changing the people's mindset. And now we figured it out, when the girls are capable, when the girls are like doing something, when they come up with from their, the trauma, from their, that all the like disappointed with the community, when they come out from that, and then it's not easy, but there is something that you can change the community and their mindset through your work, through your, that gift, through your like, that hard work. So this is the successful story, and our girls they are doing great, and they are now energized. Like they have so much energy now to like, they are putting like more effort to make more food, and they're putting more effort to the, the collecting the community. They're like just advertising, their cafe, they're advertising about their food, because now, because one person, that he was quiet, that's give them energy to, work, and then start like, I mean, like, can you believe our girls have always scared of, going in the restaurant and eating the food, because they think, and they always get insecure of going in the community, of thinking like, oh, I'm a Badi, and they get so insecure when they said their last name. But now these girls are selling the food. They don't drink even like water when we touch. But now the people, the same people, they're coming in their cafe and they're eating food, the that make the cook by the Badi girls, and they are drinking coffee, not only water, the boiling water. So I would say, and this is a successful story. I think like when the like people, when they join hand together, I think it's nothing is impossible, because now this is the cafe is a one of the like live example that we can see. This is a miracle that we can see, that the girls are doing great, and then other girls are like, they are ready to open their unisex beauty parlor. Today they were working, and like now, like then, okay, so you come to buy our body, but now you come to our, that beauty parlor to cut your hair. So you come, we'll just, the do facial in your face will make you beautiful. My beauty was for the sale in some day, but now I'm ready to, like make, that you like beautiful. So now that like changing the story. So these are the like successful story that I share. Maybe Sister Kristen have more stories. She have millions of story, because
I don't have any better stories than that because their coffee is delicious. I got to go to Carnally Cafe a couple weeks ago, and it was truly excellent.
Nice.
So a couple of stories come to mind for me, but it builds on the theme that Hannah just mentioned about changing this story. I think that the places where I've seen what I would call success are all places where the survivors have been able to transform their story, usually through community. So I'll tell you one. There was a woman who had been trafficked into India, and it's a horrible, horrible story. But she was able to get a phone, she was able to get rescue, and she was brought back to Nepal, and she had to go through a lot to be able to bring a court case, to be able to have a conversation with her parents about what had happened and why it had happened. And with the support of other people who really cared for her, she was able to start talking through her story in a way that she found the courage to be able to take the case to court. And her trafficker, who was her husband, is in prison. And her being able to stand up and say, what happened to me was wrong. That person did it. There needs to be justice. There needs to be change. I think helped her build a muscle that she didn't have before. about standing up for herself. And like Hannah said, taking hold of this new identity of not being a victim, but being someone who is overcoming even something that should never have happened. And she now works with the police. So when she came out of this whole thing, she brought the case against her husband. She said to me, her dream was to become a police person who would then help other women find justice. And she has. It's been a process with bumps and starts, and it's not always an upward path. So there were times where you dip down and you have to come back up. But that's where she is now. And I would say that's a success story, because she's not only changing herself and her family, but she's really working to change her community.
Wow, I love that. I love the idea of them being able to change their own stories. And it's almost like they've somehow found it within themselves to with the help of people and with the help of community, but to almost overcome some of the most tragic things that have happened to them, to come to a place where they can now show courage. And yeah, that's beautiful. Thanks for sharing, you both. That's very inspiring. I have another question about this idea of reintegration. What do people tend to get wrong when they think about reintegration?
We could probably talk for hours, but I think one of the things I've seen people get wrong a lot is the idea that there's a method, right? There are 10 steps we can take, and if you just impose this 10-step process on somebody, they're magically healed, and it's not a problem. And if they're not healed, it's their fault. And this irritates me so much. Like, I've seen so many people say the problem with the community is that they don't have enough education. And so we'll just solve the problem by providing education. And education's helpful, and sure, it's a piece of the puzzle. But even Hannah said to me once, how does it help that we now have really educated girls who have learned to take care of themselves, and they're beautiful and they speak good English, and now they're more valuable to the traffickers because they don't have jobs, and so they still have a fundamental piece of their identity and community that's missing. Education is not the solution. And the idea that we can just somebody from outside can come in and say, this is what's wrong, here, you fix it, and they go away, like, it's just maddening to me. Hannah, take it away.
I mean, whatever you said, I think that's truth, that sometimes it's very hard to, that even though, like, let's not talk about, like, sometimes, like, it's not only about the community, it's about the family also, right? All the family involvement. So sometimes the girls, when they get, that all the education, that about their life, making decision to be independent, and they learn how to survive, and they know exactly what is the wrong and what is the right, and they know that they know, like, when to get be, when is the time that they can be manipulated, or when, that they cannot be. But when it comes to family, I think the most of the, like, Asian country have, like, same problem. When it comes to parents, when it comes to making decision of, like, by ourselves, we struggle so much, no matter how educated you are, no matter how much, that strong you are. But it's when it comes to family, there's always, that one line will be, like, that standby of saying, like, okay, so here I can, like, I have to bow down to my parents, or my brother or my sister. So, though, I think that when it comes to our country, I would say, that maybe other country also have the same thing. When it comes to parents, especially when it comes to like daughters, they get like more like manipulated by the parents so easily because we have very soft corner, that for our parents. There's always from the childhood, that we are taught by our parents of saying like, oh, just let me know, just tell me, oh, you do this, you do that, so that's, that never changes when they don't have a correct education or correct, that uh, I would say like counseling, if the girls don't have that correct counseling when it comes to the parenting, and then they always fell on those things. And I have literally seen, I have a struggle with so much, and I also have the same kind of anger, that when I go to, it's still like today when I go to the village, and then I can see some of the men have a same kind of, that eyes looking at me of thinking, oh, she's good, she's looking good. I mean, they don't care, they don't care about like what, I can do if they do anything. And then, but in their eyes, and like sometime I would just say, like, let's say my parents, sometime when I like struggle so much, and I'm of course, everybody have a different kind of struggle. When if I'm having some problem, let's say like when if I'm having problem when it comes to money, or like if I'm like saying like, oh, I don't have a money this time or something like that, so they make a joke like they said, I mean, you just go and sell yourself, you can get some money, you're pretty enough. I know it's a joke, but it's not a joke, it's a reality of my community. Literally, like this, they told my father, my mom have said so many times. They make a joke like, like if you go one night, you can get money. You can just have money because you're beautiful. So that kind of, the word when I heard like, and then is even though I felt like, okay, I'm not still that much worth, that worthy, that my parents can say, like, okay, you can work hard. You can, that when it comes to money, you don't have to sell yourself. You don't have to sell yourself. You can get money. You can work hard. We can wait for some time, or we will work hard. But they just make a joke. There are lots of joke that tells everybody girls every single time. Even though when the people they talk, like they will say, if I let's say, if I behave, I have heard so many times. So me as an educated, like, that woman, like I work in the community for justice, for, that human rights, and I rescue girls and I provide them education. I help them to, that fight for their own rights and everything. So while working in that way, if I make some mistake, as a like normal, simple human nature and human behavior, if I make some like mistake, the people they call, oh, like why you're like behaving like a, that they say like, why you're behaving like a whore, or like a, the B word.
Mhm.
I like, man, like, I grew up with that word, why you are saying that? If I make a small mistake, it doesn't mean that I behave like that. Every woman who are inside of the brothel, they don't want to behave like that because they are forced to behave in that way. They were like manipulated by the people that they have to behave in that way. Nobody choose to do, that behave in that way. So everybody make a mistake. Your daughter also make a mistake. Your wife also make a mistake. That we all are women, we are girls, right? We make the same kind of mistake. So because of that kind of the mindset that people have, and that can be a big problem for the in the community when the girls they stand by like themselves and when they try to fight in the community. I'm still fighting. I still struggle. I am like I'm the example. Every single day I have to suffer for something.
And I think that just building on that, the reintegration piece, it's not an individual problem.
Yeah.
It's a much bigger problem than just one person grabbing hold of a new identity.
Yes.
It's beyond even a small community because everybody is having to agree on what that identity is, particularly in some countries that are very community oriented. It's not
Yeah.
just about what you think of yourself or how you present yourself. It's about how you interact with society. And there
Yeah.
are places where these are generational problems. And
Yes.
so grabbing hold of a new identity is a really deep problem for
It is.
people who've never been allowed to even think about the fact that they have agency.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like it's a whole system in itself at play, and
Yeah.
you can't really just address one bit at a time. You kind of have to, everybody has to kind of do their part to address whatever
Yes.
area, and then that's when, and collaborate, right? Because if one person works in silo to address one thing like education, and they're not communicating with organizations that are working with, I don't know, like family welfare or community development, I mean, there's a huge miss that happens, and there are big gaps that then people from the communities fall into those gaps and then pay the price of that.
Like Hannah was saying about the girls who are working at Carnally Cafe, the young women who are working at Carnally Cafe, there's as much that they have to overcome in their own thoughts and fears about what's going to happen as actually happens. I mean, yes, there are absolutely people who are going to be horrible and rude and discriminate against them. And there are also people who won't, but they have to get over their fear that that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And take the step, which is hard.
Yeah.
That kind of leads on really nicely to our next question and what we were thinking around, because when we were doing the research over the last few years, we found that one of these barriers to reintegration is the ability for survivors to cultivate new dreams about their future. And you both have touched on that so eloquently today around even that lady who's become a policewoman. The reason that one of the reasons that she was able to do that was because she was exposed to a system which she felt like she had a role to play in. And when we were doing the research, we found that, within a rehabilitation setting or within a hostel setting, many of the survivors or young women would want to be social workers or teachers because that's the image that they saw presented to them. And so, you know, my question is, how do you create an environment that really allows someone to dream?
I have dreams of how to do it. I have dreams of dreaming. I think that in part it goes back to the first question that we started with about mind, heart, body, and soul. And I think there has to be a way of helping people who have been in survival mode, sometimes for their whole lives, where they may have only been able to focus on one thing, which is how do I get my body from today to tomorrow? And that's a hard task in some of the places. So they've learned to listen to parts of their body to survive, but in order to do that, they shut down some other voices that they might have heard from. And from my perspective, the way forward is to help people learn how to hear and integrate in their own being all of those parts, body, soul, mind, heart, and to learn how to be themselves authentically. And I think, for me, one of the greatest joys of my life has been when people take a small step in one direction, even if it doesn't work out, or it doesn't work out the way they thought it would. Because the idea of taking a risk and trying something and then failing is is overwhelming for somebody who's been through a lot. And so nurturing people in the direction of being able to take small steps and have it not work out and learn something from it, I think is a huge piece to what building a future looks like. I know for sure it doesn't look like me coming alongside and imposing dreams on people. Like I can't bring a dream bucket and say, here, pick a dream out of my bucket and woohoo, now we're moving ahead. I know that doesn't work. But I think you start by dreaming small. Like dream of a better tomorrow. Like, you know what today was. Dream of a better tomorrow. What's one small thing that makes tomorrow better? And work in the direction of that one step. And then you can learn to take bigger, longer steps over time. That's my thought.
I love that. It's almost like dreaming in itself is a muscle that you have to exercise for it to become something which becomes normal or okay or doesn't feel really uncomfortable
I mean,
in
I think
yourself.
it's an abstract concept. Like dreaming, even though when we go to sleep, we dream, I think you don't dream if you're not safe. Personally, I've been in situations where I'm not dreaming because my mind is not at rest enough to do that thing that it needs to do to heal and integrate and all of those things. And without safety, I can't dream. So there has to be safety, like physical safety, but there also has to be mental, emotional, and spiritual safety. And for somebody who has never had that, yeah, it's something you got to learn to. You don't really learn to do it, right? You can't make yourself dream. You can't go to sleep and say, I'm going to make myself sleep and dream. It's just something that has to happen. Like you have to surrender to it in an environment where it's safe to do that, surrender.
Yeah. How about you, Hannah? What are your thoughts?
I think, I'm totally agree with sister, that I'll just give you an example of that the recent girl that we rescued. So she's just 15 years old, that and she was sold out into India, that so then when we rescue her, that I saw like little girl and not she only have only one dream. Her dream was that she just wanted to sleep. Literally the day that that I met her and I asked her like, okay, I mean, that we were in the hotel, like, that we fixed everything and said like, okay, we're gonna sleep tonight, like, and then I said, okay, and we were talking about, there was other girls also, like we were talking about like, they said like, that I know you, Hannah's sister, like they were talking about, and they started talking about like, okay, you wanna be a prime minister of Nepal, right? And the girls was in the corner and she was listening. So because most of the girls, they know me very well. They are from my, the same village, the girls that I rescue. And they're my relatives also. And they know, what I do and so what I'm doing and everything. So, and then they watch all my interview on YouTube and everywhere, that they have watched and they know. And they always heard my name inside of the brothel also because many people, they talk about me because of that they think that I'm gonna stop their work, so that I always pray that's gonna be true someday. So and so she was like she was in the corner and she was so quiet, and I don't know, maybe in her mind like what was happening, and maybe she was fighting with her own mind and with her own spirit. And I think she was confused about like where I am, like what's gonna happen tomorrow, like everything. So and I asked her like, okay, I mean, what do you want to do? Okay, now you're safe, you are in a safe hand, like you don't have to worry about, like you are with Hannah's sister. So I said, you are with Hannah Didi, so what do you want to do? And like she just, her eyes were so bright and she looked at me and she said like, I want to sleep. I was like, well, we're talking about to be a prime minister, like, and the girls were talking like, I want to be a doctor, a nurse, and like lots of things. And I see just answer this very simple way with the bright eyes, and I think she was just thinking of like, I just want to sleep tonight. So, and then I was like, okay, girls, like, I think now it's time to let's just stop talking and let her go to bed. So, and then she went to the bed, and next morning she wake up, and I said, like, did you sleep well? And she was so like hyper, that because I cut her hair, like she was looking good, and she said, like, after 2 years, like whole 2 years, after 2 years, I slept so good. And then I was not worried about anything. And I said, like, okay, tell me what was the reason that you slept well? She said, the door and the window was closed. So her dream was every day she was dreaming when she was there. Her wish was, I wish today the door is closed. Because every day the customer were coming and then the door was open.
Mm.
So, and for those girls, bringing here, making them to, that or find their own identity, because there is very hard to find their own identity, and living in with that new identity is tough because there are so many layers. For me, that from from Devi Sara to Hana, it took 21 years. It literally take like the whole 21 years that I struggled so much. I find out that, okay, now I think my identity has been changed. But all the time, the whole year of the 20 years, that I always struggle with my own name, which one that I need to. And look at now my in social media, I literally changed my name now. It was Hanna before, and I put it my, okay, Devi Sara Hanna Badi. Because now I started living with my old name because I loved it nowadays.
Mm.
Because the name that my parents give it to me when I was born, like that was the name that that I got from my parents. My first name that I heard of saying, like everybody was saying Devi Sara. So I started living with my own identity, not to like scared, or not to that get confused about what people gonna think if I tell my old name or my citizenship name. The Hana is beautiful name. It heard so good. But like Devi Sara is scared me. Devi Sara, whenever people call me Devi Sara, it just throw me back to my past. And then it just I feel like I'm 9 years old girl who's just waiting for someone who gonna come and gonna buy me. So that is struggle that every girls have. And as sister said, so now we're working on the for the girls. I used to get so hyper and so like quick. I wanted to like everything need to happen like so quick, like fast, super fast. Now like finally I figure it out. To find the identity, even though loving their own name, it takes time, because they never heard their own name. Nobody calls me like Anjali. Such a beautiful name, Anjali, right? But they don't call her like Anjali. 2 years she never heard her name. Now that we start working out of calling her own name, and we make them realize and how beautiful their name is. And that's the dream that every girls are having now, to find their own identity. And then that's our goal now, that first we work, and maybe it's gonna take 1 year, 2 years, but still we make them love their name first, and then they are gonna be like comfortable fighting in the world.
Wow, Hannah, that's incredibly powerful.
So, taking a moment to sit with what we just heard, here is the team's reflection.
I always find listening to Hannah very captivating. She tells stories so well, and she represents her community with such courage and clarity. And I loved how she kind of started with the story of the coffee shop, and how even in a situation where, with the mainstream coffee shop, the Himalayan Java situation and the challenge with their last names, how there is this real innate ability to innovate and to problem solve and to overcome. And it's like that's just a river running through her. Like it's just like it's in her blood somehow, or her energy, that she is just this incredible overcomer and find ways forward. And even being able to visit her a few years ago and the organization that she started, she's such a mentor to so many other girls and sister and advocate and many things to so many other girls, which I think has come through so much in the stories that she shared as well. But it was such a great example of how mindsets are being changed. And yeah, and that just the energy that comes from when you step out and do something bold, how that gives you courage to do that more. And it's like this kind of chain reaction. Like the more you step out and you see positive results, the more you keep going. And it's just this encouragement, which I think was really beautiful about that illustration that she gave about the coffee shop. And Kristen actually touched on that too. She spoke about the environment for someone to be able to dream is about giving them space to try something and to fail at something. And I
Yeah.
think we're talking about that in a later episode as well. It comes back up when we talk to Dr. Pratibha, but having that space for someone to be able to fail is how people learn. And yeah, and I think that's a good thing to remember when exploring these things and mindset change.
Yeah. I think we underestimate, I think what really stood out to me is that we underestimate our ability to take risks sometimes, and how important being able to take a risk is for a person to be able to experience. And we're talking about risk in the sense of like a good risk, right? Like knowing your boundaries and that kind of risk, right? But even that ability to take that risk comes out of a space of knowing how safe you are and how much at rest you might be as well. Um, yeah, I think that was such a light bulb moment for me. Um, yeah. But I love that story of the girls and the coffee shop, and I was laughing to myself, but it's like the mindset change just requires a little bit of sass and kindness to get started, right? And it's almost like if one person can have their minds changed, it's enough for that to also be a chain reaction, because then it's like a slow fire that keeps spreading, because then somebody else will see, and then somebody, you tend to tell people about it, I think.
Mm.
Yeah, I was thinking this has come up a couple of times in the work that we do, and in fact, even in a conversation in the future in the podcast, about how it makes a world of a difference when someone takes this challenge, when someone from the community takes this on as a challenge, right? And I feel like that is also so crucial, a thing for them to dream, because when you see someone of your own doing it, it just opens your mind to so many of the possibilities ahead than just anyone doing it. So I feel every time I see Hannah, like it's an embodiment of that, just a translation of when it's someone from the community, the difference it can make um, to community transformation as a whole.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, it goes back to that point that she shared, I think, right? Like most of the I think Kristen talked about this, where most of the successes she's seen is where women have been able to take a stand themselves. Like that's been the most successful examples of reintegration. Um, and yeah, and I think it just comes from that idea where the person feels empowered enough and has agency for them, like to do things themselves or want to do things themselves. Yeah.
Yeah. I also found it quite striking, the dialogue around education, and how when we were talking about some of the kind of assumptions that people make about reintegration, people's assumption that education is the whole solution is one of those areas. And even Hannah even saying, how does it help that we've got beautiful but also educated girls, but they still don't have jobs? Like it just makes them more desirable, but there's still nowhere for them to go and work. And education is very, very, like very important. Um, but it was just quite refreshing to hear them speak about that not being the whole solution as well. And it just reminds me how when we're thinking about things in silos, or we're thinking about kind of nicely packaged things, education can sometimes be one of those. Like there's a structure to education. You go in and you can provide it as long as you've got the right teacher and the right materials and the right space. Not to say that it's easy by any means. It's it's not, but there is a kind of a structure to it. But what they're kind of talking about is that on its own, it doesn't have the results that it needs to actually transform that community.
Oh,
And I found that really some food for thought about, yeah, the role that education plays in community transformation and development
yeah.
as well.
Yeah, especially if there aren't organizations that are further down the line, not in terms of providing education, but that address the later stages in a person's life that are working towards providing, meeting those gaps, because then otherwise, yeah, it just ends up being big gaps between what nonprofits are trying to do to solve that one problem. But
Yeah.
yeah.
And the organizations that I've seen who've done education like really well, they may have started with just education, but very quickly they've realized that there are these other aspects that they need to cover and touch on.
Yeah.
And that education is just more like a vehicle in order
Mhm.
to explore these other things as well, which, yeah,
Yeah.
is great.
Yeah. Or the other example of the other episode that we did, where education came in as a realization to discovering root problems that might exist within vulnerable communities or communities that were sort of on the margins of society. And so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And I also like how they said at the end of it, we are dealing with generational problems. So, so education cannot sort and can,
Yeah.
cure all of that
Yeah.
as much as you study.
Yeah. I like
Yeah.
that though, because I think that also speaks into why design thinking could be so crucial to these challenges, because with design thinking you don't actually look at just one generation or look at the the people that are most affected now. You look at how you could help even the generations to come from experiencing that challenge. And so yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. There was another really beautiful story about Kristen gave the example about the policewoman and how her taking hold of a new story as not necessarily a victim, but someone who is overcoming something and has been able to, yeah, follow her dreams in a sense and be exposed to these new opportunities and has pursued becoming a policewoman, I think was really encouraging to hear.
I did write that bit as to how, again, just a reminder, right? Like that rescue is difficult, but there's always a plan, was what she said. Whereas with reintegration, the challenges are multifold because you are talking about society, you're talking about government, you're talking about work, you're talking about family. It's just way too many people in the picture that, but at the same time, it comes back to everybody needs community, right? This whole concept of it takes a village, but the village also has to be like-minded and conducive for the person to come back. And then of course the cultural mindset issues of the what's the word? Like just the stigma that comes with this only adds in even more to the issue. So I thought that was also a great reminder. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that that idea that the challenge starts only after a woman comes out of, like, a survivor comes out from under the protection of a organization that has rescued her and provided rehabilitation for her, makes so much sense, because you hear of these freedom businesses trying to employ survivors that have come out of it and are ready to take on, like, ready to support themselves, but then they don't have the protection of that organization to support them. And so that's when the challenges really start. And I found that that made so much of sense to me in terms of just connection.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think the last thing that she's talked about within this part of the podcast was about identity, and how long it took for her to come back to that place of even being proud of her name, and how she's hoping that other girls also learn to, or find their way back to being okay with their original names. And I thought that was beautiful.
Yeah, that was a 21-year journey or something, she said.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's also being mindful of both ends, right? Of that spectrum, of that journey, people on both ends, I mean. Because while some would not want to take their surnames, respecting that, while there are the others that have gotten to a space of, hey, I am ready to respecting that as well. Because like you said, 21 years is a long journey, and some people it might be a longer journey. And so sometimes I feel, and I think it's for me, it's coming also from a personal experience of I've had a friend in my university, and this is something that she had shared with me. Like I remember she mentioned to me that it's not something she's comfortable talking about, but at the same time, I have had experiences where there were others that were very open about, and it was also coming from a place of, hey, I have had that moment with myself and come to terms with it. Now I want to full on face it, kind of a. So yeah, there's something about honoring both sides.
Yeah. Yeah, that is true.
Names are very powerful things, aren't they? And I was even thinking, I've changed my name in the past, my surname, and have changed it back to my birth name. And there was a real sense of empowerment claiming back my birth name at that point in my life, because it did kind of bring this sense of wholeness to me. And it's interesting because I'm pregnant and I'm thinking about baby names. There's part of me that's like, oh, it's okay, you know, name doesn't matter too much because we don't really have one yet. And then the other part of me is, no, actually they're so significant, and I wonder why it is that they are so significant to us, our names. It's this thing that kind of accompanies us or goes before us in many cases.
Yeah. Thank you for staying till the end of this part. As mentioned at the start, because of the length of this conversation, this episode has been split into two. We will continue to hear from Hannah and Kristen about the challenges around reintegration. So join us for part 2.